The Lord Hani Mysteries and the Empire at Twilight series rely on N.L. Holmes. That's Nikki, Niki. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me on.
How come they rely on you? What did you do?
I wrote the books. I'm their
All right. Well, you have a son too, so it's all good. And you have had a very interesting and continue to have an interesting career. I guess, are you a professional archaeologist? Am I saying that word right?
yes, it's for about 25 years now. I got my PhD at Bryn Mawr College and have excavated and taught mostly. I'm at retired from the University of South Florida.
Uh-huh. So, like when you walk in the streets wherever you're living, do you like wonder what's underneath the pavement or underneath the grass?
Well, I do, and interestingly enough, in Florida, archaeologists have been very active lately, finding black cemeteries under buildings and parking lots and stuff. It's been quite a publicity for the profession.
Black. When you say black cemeteries, that means what does that mean? Does that mean there's black people there?
Cemeteries where the black people of yesteryear were buried, often, and they were often forgotten, just built
What?
over, and now they're discovering them. And of course, nobody wants to have their building on top of a cemetery.
Wow. Zow. Okay. Well, that's interesting news. I'm gonna have to put a not good news or however
Well,
that.
it depends on whether it's your building on top of the cemetery, I guess.
Yeah, and it also depends on if those are your relatives.
Uh, I think it's important to give them the honor they deserve.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is quite serious. I was involved with the Nature series on PBS. I don't know if you ever saw that, but
Yeah.
I would venture to say you probably, if you didn't, you would appreciate it. But the original host of it was Donald Johansson, and
Hmm.
who was a archaeologist and went and was known for the Lucy at that
Right.
time, and in Africa. And I've always found, and I love Margaret Mead also. I'm crazy about archaeologists because I used to like to play in the woods and dig up things with the hope that I would hit a treasure chest. Did you ever hit a treasure chest?
Oh no, people always ask, "What's it like when you find gold?" And I can't, I can't answer that because we never found any and never were interested really. It just brings trouble. You have police and things like that come in at that point.
Really?
What is the treasure that I and most archaeologists want to find is clues to the real life of people of the past. And I've got to tell you about this. The most precious thing I think we've ever found, it to me at least, was a big pot, maybe 2, 3 feet tall, that was broken into 250 some odd pieces. And all over it, when we put it back together, all over it, it had handprints, black handprints, like someone had touched a different kind of clay and marked it. And we didn't know if it was deliberate decoration or just some kid got into dad's pottery shop and marked it up. But the thing that was fascinating is you could actually see the fingerprints, and the thought that only one person in the history of the universe could have made those prints, just I found it really moving. It's like they were reaching up from the sands of time to say, I was here.
I'm going to ask you, Andy, just because I don't know the answer to this. If I heard you correctly, did you say black fingerprints? Did you say that word?
Yeah, it was, yes, it was a black, not paint, but some kind of clay that fired dark.
Oh, a black. The clay was
Yeah,
dark.
yeah, the
You
clay
didn't
was
know
dark,
whose
not,
fingerprints they were,
no,
whether it
we
was a
didn't.
black person. Oh,
Very
okay.
unlikely to have been on Crete.
I, with archaeologists, you got to ask a lot of questions because there's a lot of things you don't. I mean, I don't know, and I wonder about once again getting back to my backyard story. I think if I saw, we used to see arrowheads, and we used to think that the Indians were there, and blah blah blah. So you're prolific author, and you like to write. And so tell us about this latest piece of work in Egypt.
Well, yes, it's set in Egypt. This whole series of the Lord Hani mysteries is set in the Egypt of Akhenaten's time, the heretic pharaoh. And this is the fifth in the series. So it's the books start with when Akhenaten comes to the throne, and in this one he dies, and we move into the mysterious, little-known period after his death, before the accession of Tutankhaten. So there's more room, let's say, for novelistic infilling here because we know practically nothing about actual events.
So is this a true story, you think?
Uh, Parts of it are. I mean, I've tried to incorporate, whatever true facts we have about this, or people's speculations, but to a large extent, it's my probable reconstruction.
So tell us a little bit about your probable reconstruction. What are some of the things you would put in there, probably?
Well, since these are mysteries, we have to have at least one murder. So, according to me,
Yeah, of
there
course.
is
So what else?
there is a series of thefts of sort of minor toilet articles from the king, and at this point, Nefertiti, the former queen, is now ruling as king, from her apartments. And later, Hani starts to speculate that these may be related to an assassination attempt. And I have speculated some very, well, fictional questions about the parentage of Tutankhaten and Tutankhamun, when we know him better that way. And it's true that we don't know who his parents were. He's been shown by genetics to be the son of two mummies, but those mummies are not identified. So, you know, I figured why not have some fun with it.
I always wonder about writers that can come up with so many different kinds of thoughts about a scenario, and whether I should get close to them. Because, especially any murder thoughts.
Yeah, well, that says something about mystery writers, doesn't it? No, but I do have the advantage of sort of basing this on historical events. I don't know that I could just sit down and write a modern story without any sort of grounding in fact.
So give me a little bit more out of the book, something that you feel that, would be of interest, that's exciting, maybe. I don't know if that's a good word,
Uh,
but let's use it.
well, at one point, Hani's daughter, who is she and her friend are the physicians, the women physicians to the female king in her court, her female court. And the friend of Neferet, that's the daughter, is accused of murdering her father, who was another doctor who had come to serve at court as well. Uh, and she is blamed for it, and she had sort of an abusive past, so this was believable. But Hani has to go to the police station where his nemesis, the Mahu, the chief of police, a real person, just as Hani's a real person, uh, is holding them, and he has to sort of bluff his way through and get them out of there. So then they flee under cover of night, and it's one of the more exciting moments, I think.
Aha. Do you, this is Egypt, so you have to do some serious research, right? Or have you been to Egypt?
I, gosh, you would call me out on that. I have not, but I'm told that there is so little left of what it used to look like that I wouldn't recognize it anyway. But I have studied it, and although I'm not an Egyptologist, I've taught a class in ancient Egypt for many years, and so that was constant research to keep that updated because it changes so frequently. And then in order to write the books, there were a lot of areas where I had to do specific research into particular areas of life, daily life, or into particular events, in addition to sort of my general professional knowledge. So it's been loads of fun. I feel like my eye has been open to in many places.
Well, share like, everyday life. So do you, in your knowledge of that time and that location, everyday life, you think that is there an everyday life that occurred there that you think we should be living now, here, today?
Well, I guess one that was unintentional on their part is how closely they lived with nature. They didn't have air conditioning and things that sealed them off from the seasons, or poorer people would have just beaten earth floors, which could be good or bad. I mean, it meant they had hookworms and horrible parasites from the river, but they also had a feeling of more closeness to nature in general, the seasons, the stars, and the moon, and things like that.
Is there
I
any?
would like to regain it. I'd like to regain that.
Yeah, no, nature's good. We like nature. Is there any like, I don't know, like morals to the story? Is there any kind of something like that that you like think?
Well, yeah, this whole series of Hani, the protagonist, is a very upright person with a firm moral code, and beginning with the accession of Akhenaten to the throne, which overturned Egypt's society and religion and everything else in an almost unimaginable way. He had to think hard about, do I continue to serve this person who is doing so much harm, or do I stand by the gods I know and believe in? So there's been an element of a sort of moral dilemma for him throughout the series. In this book, the dilemma he faces is, what do you do when a movement that you have approved of, whose goal you approve of, becomes violent and extremist? Do you continue to support them and just sort of make a mental caveat? Well, I don't want to kill people to get this. Or do you step away from it? And if that's the case, do you go over to the other side? How do you comport yourself? So that's what he's facing in this book.
So, there was a comment here that we're very focused in on this word peace. Um, and Hani, from what I see here, was a desiring of peace. He was a peacenik. Uh,
Well,
yes,
no,
no,
insofar
maybe.
as you could be, insofar as you could be in those days. He has served as a military scribe and has seen what the butchery of war does to the human body. And so um, I think he is a person who would prefer diplomacy to war in any case, professionally, if no other reason. And so when he sees civil war brewing, those who want to restore the old ways in which he is invested, uh, but when he sees them getting to the point of an armed uprising and even inviting a foreign ruler in to rule Egypt, something that really happened, um, he's torn. That's the point at which he starts to ask himself, has this gotten too far?
Uh-huh. Well, the cat wants his part of the show also, and
Yes, that's the Egyptians worship cats, and he knows that.
yes, well, and I think I'm very open for the cat. I did a pet story earlier today about how so more adoptions during this past year and a half under COVID ever in the
Yeah.
history of adoptions. There's no
Wow.
And then the story was on how do people deal with those that have adopted pets when they're going to get back to potentially their regular life.
Uh,
It was an interesting scenario. Why is it that they love cats so much in Egypt? Egypt was really,
yeah,
it's interesting.
it
Any
is.
reason why, do you think?
Well, the goddess Bastet, who was of course, they have a lot of lionesses too, so I guess those are big cats. But the domestic cat Bastet was the goddess of motherhood and joy. I sort of you see her represented with kittens at her feet, and it's true. I mean, mother cats are kind of cats generally seem to enjoy themselves quite a lot. So um, they're very content and things like that when they're curled up. But also, I think they admired their hunting prowess and their litheness and their ability to see in the dark and stuff. And they were one of the few cultures where cats were native. They had the desert cats that were domesticated, and they were favorite house pets. But then also they were offered to the goddesses as you know dead offerings too. So it was a mixed bag as far as the cat situation went.
You know your stuff. Can Hani reconcile his desire for peace with his devotion to the king of the gods? Who was, well, I like this word peace I mentioned. Who's the king of the gods?
That would be Amun-Ra, the sort of traditional chief god of the New Kingdom, this period during which the story is set, who is overthrown by Akhenaten, who wants to reduce all the gods to one, the Aten, which means the the sun disk, the visible sun disk, as opposed to, so the visibility, as opposed to the hidden one. Amun, who was a Theban creation god, whose name means the hidden one, was merged early on with Ra, the god of the sun, and so he became the chief god not only of the Theban dynasty who ruled Egypt, but also merged with the sun, who was the main force in Egyptian life, being a rather hot country. So he and his family were the chief gods of this period until Akhenaten's revolution, and of course his priesthood was numbered in the tens of thousands, and they owned enormous amounts of property. They were one of the major economic engines of the kingdom. And when all of that was overthrown, it did terrible things to the economy. And there were tens of thousands of really angry people out there, all the lay people who worked for the temples too. So Hani was not alone in wanting to see Amun-Ra put back on his throne.
Wow, Zhao, and you were a nun, is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I am a
Not,
reverend.
not of Amun-Ra, though.
Okay, and I'm a reverend. I'm not a reverend of whatever that name is. Armanan.
Yeah,
Close enough. Where can
close enough.
people? Where the to three last quickies? Where can people get? So it's a series. Where can people buy the series?
The series are available all online bookstores, Amazon, Kobo, Barnes and Nobles, all of them. The new book, the fifth book in the series, Lake of Flowers, which is appearing tomorrow, is available right now only on Amazon. And no, I take that back. I think it's already up on the other sources too. So that will
You have
be
it. You have
available
it
as of
there.
tomorrow.
That book.
I don't, because we don't have the paperback copy yet. It's purely an ebook at this
At this
point.
point, okay.
But the paperback is coming.
All right. Question number two. When is the whole thing going to come out as a movie?
Oh, you're asking the wrong person. I
Wow.
would like to. I would like to see it as a television series, but I guess the production values would be pretty high.
They spend a lot of money on television stuff nowadays.
I think it may fit in that the characters are people of color. That would sort of make it appealing, I think.
And people like those kinds of. I love to watch those kind of
I would
period
love to
pieces.
as well.
All right, I put that in the back here. I sort of like made lots of television shows in my life. I don't know if you know that,
Well,
but
let's say, speak to your friends.
I'm 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 a former network guy for many, many, many years. As many years as you were doing a lot of things you were up to. So 50 years only. So and the last question comes back to our peace statement. We do the International Day of Peace for the United Nations. We do a concert here in Times Square, if it'll work out this year, and around the world. So we focus on peace, and we ask people, what does peace mean to them? So, Nikki, what does peace mean to you?
Well, I think it's a lot more than the absence of war, as every day in our political world teaches us. The ability to live together and enjoy our lives without censorship or pressures of any kind. And I think to become the kind of population, the kind of individuals who are willing to be kind and respectful without being forced to it. Um, I don't know. After studying history for so long, I don't know if I have true hope for that, but I'll keep myself open to it. That would
Oh, it's
be what
here. It's here. It's
I
here.
I hope so. Just around the corner.
Imagine peace. It's
Yep.
here. That's the good news. All righty. Well, but there's a few that are confused and don't like that peace scenario. They bop you on the head. But
They're afraid of it.
they are afraid of just living life as an open book and not a closed, hidden scenario, I guess, and so on. You're a good professor, I can tell. You're a good listener. You are, you speak very, very, very honorably. When I can see that your students have, I'm sure, enjoyed your classes because you appreciate the others equally to your ability to teach. I can see that. So I
Well,
want to
that
thank you.
thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored if that's the truth.
Well, that's the way I see it from this school chair. All right,
Thank you.
thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thanks. I've enjoyed it.
Me too.